Okay guys, I'm back and we're, wow, right into popcorn territory today because we're going to talk about Ready Player One, the new Steven Spielberg film. We're going to do the usual thing. Should you see the film? Then we'll talk a little bit about the themes and then do spoilers. Should you see the film? Well, I have a rule. You have to see every Steven Spielberg film. I think I've missed one, maybe The Terminal in the last 2 decades. And I definitely think that the vast majority of people will really enjoy this film, but it's got some issues and we're going to talk about that in a second. But for the vast majority of people, go see this film. I think you'll enjoy it. But then we're going to discuss why maybe some people might not be too happy. Okay, be back in a second. Okay, so Ready Player One. Ready Player One is based on this nerd extravaganza. Ernest Cline's book came out, I think, 2011, something like that. Straight away, the buzz was that if you were in any way into geek culture as a kid, you should read this book. Now, I loved this book, and I'll tell you how geeky I am. There's a couple of challenges in this book, because it's pretty much Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for a nerd. And I worked out one of the challenges, the riddles, just because of my knowledge of the game Zork. So we're talking that kind of level of geekery. And the funny thing is with this book came out in the pure, quite innocent times of 2011, before Gamergate, before the Me Too movement, before a lot of things came through politically. And so when this book came out, it was beloved. And over the last 7 years or so, there's been a bit of a backlash against it, that it's not that well written, which is probably true. I don't think Cline's the greatest writer, but I do think this book works and I really enjoyed it. So we get to this year, and Steven Spielberg took him about 7 years to get the rights to all the little Easter eggs and payoffs in this film. And it took him a long time to get them all and be able to put them on the big screen. So all of a sudden, we get to 2018, Steven Spielberg has made this film, which is a paean to the world of geekery. So the setup, if you haven't heard, is it's 2045, and it's set in Columbus, Ohio, where it's kind of a weird dystopia in that things have gone bad, there's been wars, etc. And so people basically live their lives in VR in a thing called Oasis. And if you've ever seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the guy who invented it, James Halliday, passes away and says, I have left 3 keys within the world, which can be hunted down, and you'll find the golden Easter egg, and the golden Easter egg will give you the right to take over the Oasis, which is worth trillions of dollars. So that's where it begins, and then that's a real excuse to trawl through the nostalgia of James Halliday's memories, which are all my memories. He's basically my age. And so the reason why I'm saying all this is I found this film very, very, very difficult to criticize and to be constructive. And that is because I don't think the film is very good at all. Like, narratively, the structure is not well done. The characters are underdrawn. They're not developed at all. The acting, apart from Mark Rylance as James Halliday, is pretty average. Ben Mendelsohn is the worst I've ever seen, but he's got nothing to work with. It's not Ben's fault. The rest of the kids are pretty good. Olivia Cooke is a little bit better as Artemis. And the main character, Wade Watts, played by Sheridan, he is really bad. I never was a huge fan of his, but there is no charisma at all. You don't get why this guy might be the leader of the, resistance, in the sense that they go up against all the companies to try and find the golden Easter egg. So there are all these problems. You could literally just pick this film apart, and this is the problem I have. I've done that. I'm that guy who destroyed Alien Covenant. I hated it so much and I just picked apart every problem with it. Yet, I really enjoyed this film. When it gets to the end of the first set piece, which is just mind-blowing, I had the biggest smile. I was smiling for the vast majority of this film. I let it wash over me. I kind of turned my brain off. And you know what? I hate saying that, because when other people say to me, "Oh, Eden, just turn your brain off and enjoy stuff," normally I'm really gets my back up, because I say, no, that's not the role of a critic, but it's also not the role of any intelligent being just to turn your brain off. You should always be engaged and understand what is happening thematically. So thematically, this film, I think, is quite empty. Even though I had a great time watching it, it is very strange. As I've said, where it works, it's really, really good, and where it doesn't work, I think it's abysmal. And so the reason why I'm talking about this more than the film itself is recently all the reviews have started coming out, and the film is being panned by a lot of people, and I understand why. And it's also being defended by a lot of people who say, wow, I really enjoyed this, as Spielberg's back, he's really doing what he does well. And you know, and I kind of get what they're saying, even though I kind of disagree, because I don't think this is a great Spielberg. We're talking about Steven Spielberg. I mean, this is probably in the top, in the bottom third of all the films he's ever made in a lot of ways, even though I think it just looks absolutely gorgeous. You know what? Let's go to spoilers, because there are some things I want to talk about and I can't talk about them here. Okay, so we're going to talk in spoilers, but mainly because I might accidentally tell you something about the film which you might not want to know. And the reason why I'm kind of couching it like that is, in the book, famously, the first and second and third challenge, the third challenge is the same kind of in the movie. But the first two are, one is he has to, goes into the Tomb of Horrors, the most famous D&D module of all time, and then he has to play Joust versus the Demi-Lich, which is in the Tomb of Horrors. I played Tomb of Horrors, I played Joust in an arcade. So that got removed. Then they kind of do this weird thing where they go using Zork, the Infocom text adventure. Yes, I've played it and finished it. He then has to kind of reenact Back to the Future. That's not in the film, although there's plenty of nods to it. And then finally, he has to play the game Adventure, which is an original Atari game. I played it in 1979 when I was 15 when it came out, but I never finished it because it was at a mate's place. So that's kind of in the end of the film, although they've changed it a bit. So all the book lovers are really angry that those scenes aren't in the film. Now, of course, as a film goer, as someone who studies film, that's because you could not put them in. A, it wouldn't work cinematically, but B, the Venn diagram of people who have played Zork, Dungeons and Dragons, Tomb of Horror is infinitesimally small. It might just be me. So, and my friends, so that wouldn't work. So what Spielberg has done is taken tropes from the book, and basically Ernest Cline and Zach Penn rewrote it to make it almost like the cinematic version of the book. And I think that was a very clever decision, because it gets to me to able to talk about the best scene in the whole film. And this scene is so incredible that whether you think that this is a good film or not, this almost will be one of the most remembered scenes of 2018, and it, in a way, reorganizes the way that we think of nostalgic filmmaking. And the reason why I had to wait to tell you about it in spoilers is, for the second scene, instead of reenacting Back to the Future, if you wanted it to make it the film scene, they inadvertently, while doing research, have to go into the film The Shining, the great Stanley Kubrick classic, and they have to work out a puzzle within it. But Spielberg, I don't know how he did this, has recreated The Shining, but with different camera work, so that a person who's never seen The Shining still understands the scene. Someone who has seen The Shining or just in passing still gets it. And anyone who loves The Shining gets every single payoff. And it is, I cannot tell you, the level of technical bravura by Spielberg to do this scene, aside what it would do to Kubrick. I don't know, he would probably march up to Steven Spielberg and kill him and then kill himself. I got to not think about that. But the level of skill needed to do this scene, it is unbelievable. Everyone needs to see this film just to see this scene, yet I can't tell anybody about it because it would ruin the film if you knew beforehand. It is unbelievable. It is filmmaking of the highest level. Yet, as I've already said in this review, I don't think the film is that great. And we've got to talk about the main problem is between 2011 and the kind of films that this references, which are a lot of John Hughes classics from the 80s and that, where it was quite okay, or we accepted that it was okay to have a narrative theme in which the hero has a main target, the main goal is to win the girl. So it became known as the win the girl premise. And it's seen now as extremely lazy story writing, but beyond lazy, it's just this thing that women are prizes, that in the last 7 years, especially after Gamergate, it became a thing that is just not the way that women should be written in film or in art generally. So this is a major problem with it, because in the book, Artemis, who is played by Olivia Cooke, is the best gamer in the world. And they kind of half reference that in the film, but really very quickly on, Wade Watts just does everything. And it's a little bit wearisome, because in the book you really know that Wade it just has this kind of way to read James Halliday, but in the movie he could be construed that he is great at James Halliday and on nostalgia, or he's kind of just lucky, because you can't really tell the difference. So the movie's got these real major problems in representation, but also just narratively. And yet, as I said, I absolutely loved it. I'm not going to talk too much more, because really, I'm going to be talking counterpoint. I think go see it and judge for yourself. I think you're either going to really hate it and you'll probably get a lot of intellectual kind of fun from picking it apart. But if you go see it, you get to see the Shining sequence. The special effects are just absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed it. I think if you are of my age or 12, you're going to really enjoy it. And maybe in between, it might be a bit too much for you. That's it for today. Another million films coming up, and some book reviews coming soon. Okay. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe. If you like it, please push the like, because the algorithm kicks in and more people see my stuff. And share, comment. I love having a debate. This would be a great film to talk about, because I reckon you could kick the shit out of it and I wouldn't be able to mount much of a defense, even though I loved it. And I'm on Twitter at Guru Eden. I'll see you soon. Bye.